Selectmen's meeting for September 2nd, the day after Labor Day version of the Board of Selectmen's meeting. I want to announce again that the meeting is being recorded, and we start with a moment of appreciation for our servicemen and women serving in Afghanistan. Thank you. And we will start this evening with the town accountant, Joy Ricciuto, and the town treasurer, Georgia Colivas, review FY14 year-end revenue and expenditure results. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
Good evening. My name is Joy Ricciuto. I'm the town accountant. The fiscal year 2014 closing and reconciliation process is fully underway. Fiscal 14 cash is fully reconciled to the treasurer, and tax accounts, meaning real estate and excise tax accounts, are reconciled, and school accounts, grants, revolving funds are in progress. Water funds, sewer funds, trust, and stabilization funds are next. The reconciliation and closing process occurs during August and September, and then we're probably into October until we're working on fixed assets. Fixed assets purchased during the year are updated, depreciation for the year calculated, and all this information goes into the town's financial statements as per GASB Statement 34, GASB meaning Governmental Accounting Standards Boards. GASB 34 is accounting for fixed assets and was implemented back in 2003. After the reconciliation process, the town accountant looks carefully at reservation of fund balance as a part of the closing process. In August, we need to set aside a couple weeks to work on the school end-of-year report that gets filed with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, formerly known as DOE. And we calculate the cost of the town, the cost that the town spends on behalf of the school department that does not show up in the school's operating budget in the town meeting warrant report. Those costs consist of health insurance, the 62% the town pays for each active employee, the 50% the town pays for the school retired employees, plus the basic life insurance cost, the property and liability insurance for the buildings, unemployment claims, and school debt principal and interest payments that do not show up in the school budget. Those show up in the treasurer's budget. We also calculate the school employees' share of the unfunded pension liability and other costs incurred by town departments on behalf of the school department. In October and November, Schedule A is worked on. It takes approximately a month to create worksheets, schedules, and record all town spending and revenues in a report that goes to the state and is due by November 30th. In that report, the state likes to know how much is spent by department, how much is received in grants, and that has to be broken down by state grants versus federal grants versus private grants, how much is received and spent in revolving funds. So every revenue and every expenditure that occurs in the town during the fiscal year ends up in Schedule A for the state to go over. That culminates in the final closing process in the financial software, which then moves the balance sheet accounts meaning the assets and liabilities and fund balance accounts, that moves those ending balances into the beginning balances and then into the new fiscal year. And also, the Schedule A process ends with the town accountant's calculation of the town's free cash. November is also when the tax recap process begins, and that takes a couple of weeks. The town accountant inputs all the budgetary numbers into the tax recap. The tax recap, as you are all familiar with, is what we use to set the tax rate. Mm-hmm. And also in November, the annual budget process begins for the next fiscal year. The accountant's office is responsible for the budget worksheet packets, which include historical info that are distributed to the department heads. In November also, the town's independent auditors are scheduled for 2 weeks of field work at the town hall, beginning November 17th this year. The firm's name is Powers & Sullivan, and they're out of Wakefield. A lot of prep work is done during that time prior to the arrival of the auditors. But the audit doesn't end when they leave 2 weeks after that 2-week period. They'll still contact us in December with questions and other helpful information. The past fiscal year saw the conversion and integration in our office of the schools department's financial records onto the town's munis financial software. Since early spring, this has been an enormous project, with the school department hiring an outside consultant to expand and create a newer, better revised chart of accounts with account numbers that mirror the state's DESE/DOE account numbers and still retains the characteristics of the town's current state UMass-compliant GL structures. UMass means Unified Mass Municipal Accounting Systems. So it's quite an effort to combine both the DOE account numbers and also the state mandated account numbers all together.
I just ask how that seems to be working, because that, I would think in the long run, is going to be very beneficial.
Oh, absolutely. That is working. I think the chart of accounts, the person hired to do that has done a tremendous job.
Great.
But it's still, having the school come onto the financial software, we're still working on that. And during that conversion process, we were without a school business manager from mid-April till July 1. And then the school staff were gone, as you all know, July and August. And now they're back in session. The staff is back and still trying to log on to the new software for the first time and to learn how to use it. The new school finance director, Michael LaFrancesca, has been extremely responsive and proactive, getting his staff on and training them as users himself. But we're still working out bugs. Most people have been able to log on. We still have a couple that haven't been able to, and we're still working those problems out. So we're not done yet, but eventually, I think when everyone is all on, it'll be easier going forward. Once everyone's trained and once we get the permissions, restrictions, and whatever else up and running. Because then, from then on, it would just be a matter of hiring new hires, and, which is a once-a-year project usually. In January, we will need to engage a GASB 45 OPEB actuary again to update and perform another study of the OPEB liability, OPEB meaning other post-employment benefits. And my guesstimate of free cash, that we will remain upwards of $2 million. That's merely a guesstimate. I'm not at that point where I'm working on free cash. We spent $1.3 million in free cash at the April 2014 meeting, and so far it appears that we recovered $1 million of it. Let's see. We received $318,000 in excess of local receipts projected, and departmental turnbacks is $541,000. And we received about $8,000 over in cherry sheet estimates. The snow deficit was $164,000, but we'll raise that in fiscal 15 and recover that money.
What's your, just your personal, we have about $2 million plus into free cash. Where does that stand just historically, and are you comfortable with that amount? Are we high, low, just the?
$2 million was high. I think it's the highest the town had in free cash since I've been town accountant.
This last year?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was, 2.6 million?
Yes.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm comfortable with it. When you look at the reserves, what the Department of Revenue recommends, and also what Moody's, the bond rating agency, recommends, you should have at least 5% of your operating budget in free cash, and you should have at least 5%, this is a minimum now, of 5% of stabilization set aside of your operating budget. And naturally, you can have more than 5%, and they would heartily recommend more than 5%. But reserves are important to maintain because the state considers it a necessary component of sound fiscal management, and the bond rating agencies expect the town to maintain reserves for good financial stability in order to prevent sharp fluctuations in the tax rate. The town should also maintain sufficient reserves to satisfy the bond rating agencies and the investors.
But historically, that's on the high side?
Yeah, we've been running around, normally we run around 1.5 to 1.7 million. The critical thing is we normally take 500,000 out of free cash to balance the tax rate, the last article at town meeting. So if you take 500,000, then you need to put 500,000 in the following year, so you replenish that, so you're not depleting free cash. as Joy mentioned, we took, 1.3 million out this year?
Yes.
Because we took money out for the public safety building plans. We took money out to fund the OPEB liability. So we took an unusually large amount out. So it's good we're getting back to the 2 million range. Because although we won't have the public safety cost again this year, that was a one-time thing. We do anticipate, well, going forward, we'd like to at least match what we put up for OPEB, if not exceed it, not raise that a bit. And as Joy said, we've got a audit coming in January, and our last liability went up from, I think, 38 million to 41 million. And we have about 1.1 million set aside now, so we need to get cracking on that.
Sure.
Otherwise, it will affect our bond rating down the road, not right away, but eventually. So, yeah, it's it's a good level, but not the highest we've had.
Does anyone have any further questions?
I was wondering about the 5% stabilization fund level that you say the bond rating people recommend,
At least a minimum of.
at least
So,
a minimum of. How are we doing on that?
We are at the 5% currently.
Okay. And which are the stabilization funds that they count towards that?
All three of them.
For those of us that aren't as familiar as you, what are those?
Oh, okay. There's a
Which ones?
general stabilization
I
fund.
don't-
Then there's an OPEB stabilization fund.
Okay,
And then there's a sewer betterment paid in advance stabilization fund.
okay.
George, just a quick question too about the departmental turnbacks. I think you said probably around 541,000 this year. Historically, a range how does that stand as far as numbers wise, as far as what you've seen in past years and stuff like that?
That's about average.
Is it? Okay,
I've seen
okay,
higher, and then I've
Wow.
seen lower too,
okay.
depending on how tight the budget is.
Sure. So I think that's very encouraging to think about, that the people budgeted, but, conservatively, but still, we
Don't
get
feel
some money
obliged to use it
use
all.
every single last cent. So, I mean, that's very good. That's very good.
Yeah, I think that speaks well of our department heads, that they
Yeah.
don't spend money just for spending money's sake.
Oh, yeah.
If they don't need it, they turn it back. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. That's great. Yeah. I hadn't realized that the number was that high. I think that's really good. Just my perception had been that it was pretty much all used up, just thinking, how things are always so tight anyways from year to year with everyone and stuff like that. So that's very good. That's really good.
Joy, we're asking everybody to look forward 5 years in terms of needs and changes and things. As you look out in terms of a period of years, are there things that you see affecting you or your department in the future?
Are you asking me what needs I see?
Yep. Things that we as a town should be aware of, that you see as a town accountant, or things that the town accountant's department is going to need in the next 5 years, say? You guys seem to keep ending up with more and more requirements for audits of things.
So that's true. I guess if anything, it would be staffing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
that's very good.
Can we get copies of your remarks, because they were excellent?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
And I will update you. I wear two hats. I wear a treasurer's hat and a tax collector's hat. Many times I wear them both at the same time because it's very difficult to segregate my job, even though some communities actually have two different people doing
Okay.
both jobs. So the current items on my to-do list for the treasurer's office. The town will be, once again, I feel like every time I come here, all we do is borrow money. The town will be selling general obligation bonds amounting to $7.2 million on Wednesday, October 1st. The borrowing includes two authorized articles. The first one is $5,840,000 for the Medfield State Hospital water tower. And the second one is $1,360,000 for the Red Gate Farm land acquisition. As you can recall, the Red Gate Farm land acquisition was previously authorized in June of 2014. We issued a ban, which was a short-term borrowing vehicle, that currently matures on the 17th of October. Once these borrowings are completed, the town will have no authorized and no unissued debt until the next town meeting. Currently, as of the beginning of this fiscal year 15, the town's outstanding debt is approximately $46.1 million, with 37.8 million of it in principal and 8.3 million of it in interest. The town's current bond rating by Moody's is a AA1, and we are subject to another rating call on September 23rd for the current borrowing. Hopefully, we will stay the same. I'm sure we will stay the same. As for the month of September, in the treasurer's office, it brings back the large biweekly payrolls, now that school is back in session, and the rather large vendor warrants, the weekly vendor warrants that are processed for all town and school departments. Millions of dollars of funds are dispersed each month. For example, just to give you an idea, in June of 2014, which is the last month of a fiscal year, the busiest month of a fiscal year, the town spent $8.2 million. We are a business. Money comes in, money goes out faster. It's just like at home. You can't get it in fast enough, you spend it. The beginning of each month to a municipal treasurer also means the monthly reconciliation of all funds, town and school, with all bank deposits, with all bank statements, including all revenues collected and all expenditures paid. School's back in session, school revenues now come back in. Any type of revenue that is collected by any department head in town goes through that office. Currently, taxpayers can use the town's online tax payment system to process real estate tax bills, water and sewer bills, and motor vehicle excise bills. I am working with the new school business manager to implement many of the school user fees to try to put those online. We're currently started with the iPad leases and with the kindergarten tuition payments that just began in September. Just to give you an example of some of the revenue that comes in: athletic fees, school tuition, adult education fees, rents, departmental revenues, library fines, cemetery, stickers for the transfer station. Again, any revenue associated with any town department goes through the treasurer's office and must be accounted for at the end of each month. In addition, the treasurer's office is also responsible for all of the student activity accounts, which are fees that are paid by parents of students in town for a specific purpose at school. We have 5 of those accounts representing each of the school. The management team will also begin to prepare for the workers' compensation audit, which occurs in October, the town's fiscal year 2014 audit, which will continue in December. We will also begin working on the fiscal year 2015 tax rate. Our current tax rate is $16.12. In the winter of 2015, we plan on updating the OPEB actuarial evaluation, and we will also begin to assess how to structure the OPEB liability in a protected trust fund, as was voted in this past town meeting. I know a lot of this is pretty repetitive of what Joy has mentioned. Obviously, she and I are both part of the management team. A lot of our projects are done together. In late October, I plan to advertise any outstanding parcels whose real estate balances are not current and are not on an approved payment plan with the treasurer, with the tax collector. The treasurer currently has 4 parcels in tax title and 3 parcels in the foreclosure process, 2 of which should be settled by the end of the calendar year. In addition, the treasurer also manages 10 parcels in a tax deferral status, which have been approved by the Board of Assessors, whereby the owners defer their real estate taxes until they sell their property or until their passing. October also brings water and sewer bills to users' mailboxes. These bills cover the usage period of October 1st, 2014 through October 1, 2014. These are the summer usage bills, as we name them. But before those are all processed, water and sewer liens are imposed on past due balances. And those water and sewer liens are added on to the 3rd quarter real estate tax bills, which go out in February. On an ongoing basis, I handle all the unemployment issues, health insurance for retirees. I act as a liaison to the Norfolk County Retirement System. I keep up to date with record retention. I balance trust funds on a quarterly basis. I update the town's investment policies based on current market conditions and on advice from auditors. I work closely with the DR, the Division of Local Services, monitor appropriation expenditures and revenues, and most importantly, and quite difficultly at times, is work with the public. Now on to the second hat that I wear, the tax collector. At the end of June, for the 2014 tax levy, 99.3% of all real estate tax receivables have been collected. This percentage is a reflection of the town's solid tax base and the commitment of the taxpayers to the town. In fiscal year 14, the tax collector's office prepared over 300 municipal lien certificates, which gives you an idea of the number of sales and refinances that have occurred in the town in the fiscal year. The next motor vehicle excise commitment will be released in early October by Mass DOT, which was formerly known as the Registry of Motor Vehicles. And the largest excise commitment, which is around 10,000 bills, will be released to the town of Medfield in February of 2015. In fiscal year 14, motor vehicle excise revenue was approximately $1.9 million. In the next few weeks, the second quarter preliminary real estate tax bills will be processed and mailed. These bills are due on or before November 3rd. We issue approximately 4,600 real estate tax bills and 80 personal property bills during a fiscal year. In addition, the water and sewer bills are collected by the tax collector's office. And just to close, and most importantly, the lines of communication between my office, Joy's office, and all town and school departments are healthy, they're clear, we work extremely well together, we respect one another's opinions, and I think that is all evident in our financial statements, our bond ratings, and our collection rates, and it truly is a pleasure to work for the town.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Joy, can I ask you the same question that I asked, I'm sorry, Georgia, can I ask you the same question that I asked Joy? Looking forward 5 years, what do you see coming? What do you hope to change?
Probably in 5 years, maybe not 5, but definitely 10. I don't see any check coming in over the counter. Within the next 5 years, I know beginning in the spring of 2015, all athletic fees will be paid online. If a check is issued, there will be an additional fee imposed for a check. We are trying to cut down on the number of checks that have to be processed. We are extremely fortunate that we have a wonderful working relationship with the bank. A lot of banks are, starting to charge for transfers. We do not get hit with fees. We're very fortunate for that. So we're going to start, putting a lot of these fees online. With the athletics, and then in September, the student activity fees, where you get a pile of checks, 500 checks at $10 a check. And teachers stick them in their drawer, we lose them, they come back to us, the account's been closed, then we deal with bounced checks. So I think in 5 years, the number of deposits will definitely decrease. A lot of it will be done online. We offer so many online options right now. People prefer to, they can use the town's online system, they can use their own online banking, but I definitely see that as a priority within the next 5 years, is to give the option to the taxpayer to pay it online. Definitely.
And all employees get paid through electronic
All employees
fund
are paid
transfer.
bi-weekly. All employees have been asked to, for direct deposits. We currently have only 4 employees in the town side that have not signed up for direct deposit. Obviously, it is, beneficial to the town. It is cost effective. And then early winter, we will not be issuing any pay stubs anymore. You will log on to a website and you will see your pay stub. It'll cut down tremendously on paper and processing costs, yes. And the school department, they probably have a 90% direct deposit rate. Not many of those employees get a paper check. So yes, technology definitely, is high on the list to make it efficient for the taxpayer or the user to issue that revenue to you. or to pay the revenue to the town.
And I remember that you implemented a new software package, was it Patriot?
Yes, we're currently, I
going?
believe we started that in 2004, so it's not that new,
Not new
actually.
anymore,
We're in
okay.
our 11th year, which is hard to believe, yes.
We were a
And
beta
that's-
site or something, weren't we?
Yes, that's working great. We are installing, we did install last year the module with the excise system onto that same software, and probably next fiscal year, we'll be putting our tax titles on there as well. We are very fortunate, as I mentioned before, in the town of Medfield, that we don't have many tax titles. Many surrounding communities, could have maybe 100 or 150 parcels in tax title. I'm very fortunate that I don't have those issues to deal with.
Can I just ask, we have a double A1 bond rating, which is very, very, that's this,
The next one would be a double A2.
and
Now, a double A2 would mean that you have all your reserves, your stabilization balances are quite healthy. We're not quite there yet. I think in today's economy, I don't think Moody's would upgrade us at the current point in time, to be quite honest with you. I believe the latest one that got a double A2, was it Dedham?
Dedham, yeah, I think it was a AAA though, wasn't it? Didn't Dedham get a
I'm
AAA?
not sure, maybe.
It's confusing.
It
between
depends
Moody's
on
and
which
Standard &
rating
Poor's, yeah.
agency you use too. I'm not sure if they use Moody's. You can either have a Moody's rating agency or a Standard & Poor's, and their ratings are a little different. But a double A1 is extremely strong, and that's evident in the interest rates that we get when we borrow money.
And is the big thing that keeps us from having a higher rating that our reserves just aren't as high as they want?
Our rainy day funds, yes.
Okay.
And there's one other reason, well, there's several reasons probably, but one other major reason is we're 94% residential. And they like to see a better mix of commercial, industrial, and residential.
thank you.
If you have any other questions, just email us or
Will do.
call us.
Good.
All right?
Excellent. Good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Thanks a
so
lot.
much.
Thank you very much.
Georgia, would you be willing to submit your written remarks as well, please? Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Our next appointment is with the State Hospital Master Planning Committee. Oh, they have a name now. Steve Nolan, Acting Chairman. Thank you for coming. I see you brought a lot of support with you.
Yes, I'm not sure if I have everybody, but I think I'm pretty close.
Yeah, the room's just about filled with planners.
So the committee has 9 members. I'm on it: Ken Richard, Pat Casey, Ralph Costello, Randy Carr, Gil Rogers, Teresa James, David Perini, and Stephen Brown. And I think, I don't see Stephen here, but I think everybody else is here except Stephen Brown. So we're here, I guess, to hear from you about your charge to us, and I'm acting chair. We haven't really formally elected a chair or co-chairs at this point, but we're going to hopefully do so over the next couple meetings. But you had asked me to sort of facilitate getting the committee organized, so I'm standing in that role right now.
Okay, great. I had sort of expected that they were going to report to us on something. What did you want to, bless you?
Do you want me to describe what we've done so far?
Sure. why don't you?
I mean, we just, basically, we had one meeting in July. We had actually tried to have a second meeting in August where we would tour the state hospital facility itself and get into some of the buildings, but we couldn't get permission to do that on a weekend, so Christine and I were trying to coordinate that, so we're going to try again, but we'll probably have to do it during the week, it sounds like. So the other subject is we've been working on an RFP to hire a consultant to help us preparing a master plan. So Sarah Raposa has been working on that with a subgroup of members of the committee to try and get something in shape so that we can go out and retain someone to help us in producing our work product. We also have meetings. We've generally set up meetings for the second and fourth Tuesdays of each month. This month, Gil Rogers has coordinated meetings with Beth Murphy at Mass Development, who was in charge of Northampton State Hospital redevelopment, and a couple of folks from Foxborough who were in charge of their redevelopment of the Foxborough State Hospital. So we're sort of trying to meet with them and understand how they master plan their state hospital properties, what the steps are, and as to mass development, perhaps see what kind of assistance they can lend us in our own master planning efforts. I've gotten some questions from committee members about what it is that you're looking for us to produce for you. Things that we've talked about are sort of a report, if you will, on a master plan, but also going in the direction of, do we do a zoning bylaw amendment to do a 40R district or some other kind of special zoning for the state hospital property? And also on the development side, do we work towards structuring an RFP that might go out to developers soliciting interest on potential bids for purchases or ground leasing of portions of the property to do redevelopment? So there's sort of a host of different things that we could be working on, and I guess one of the things we wanted to hear from you is sort of how far do you want us to go, in what direction do you want us to go, so we can kind of be responsive to what your vision is.
Okay. I mean, I can start by talking about that, or my thoughts, which is that I would love the committee to do as much as possible in terms of presenting the town with plans, a complete package of plans as to how to go forward with this site, what to do with it, how to do it, what the town wants from it. If that includes the zoning, so much the better. We've been trying to get new bylaws written for the town to specifically incorporate the issues for that site that might come up, and we haven't been able to get that done, so if you guys wanted to do that, that'd be wonderful. I think that it's just a huge opportunity for the town. I don't think it's something that the town should sit on and just let it go along for years. I think and my understanding is that you have a schedule that is fairly aggressive in terms of trying to come up with something in less than a year in terms of reporting back to the town as to what you think should happen and how it should happen, maybe. But I mean, in my mind, the more guidance you can give us, the town, as to what your wisdom is as to what would make the town better and more vibrant, really. I think it's a huge opportunity. I think it can make the town more interesting, more profitable, more vibrant. So I'm really looking forward to the changes in the town that'll happen there.
I'd like to see you folks, I think, and you're well on your way, too, as far as getting RFP out for a master plan, for a consultant to bring a firm on to help kind of work through things and stuff like that. So I think that would be a big first step, I think, to kind of get going on that, so we can kind of see, where we're all heading here. It's obviously going to be quite a messy process, and we got a lot of stuff's going to happen and stuff. So I think just trying to nail that down from my perspective will be great to kind of at least get some traction in one area there.
Then there has to be town buy-in too, whatever
Exactly, yeah.
the planners come up with.
Right, so I think.
We want people to accept.
Part of the process will be public outreach in buildings.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, Richard?
That was my, in the process of developing this master plan, is to involve the public, because in the end, with the zoning, we're going to need we're going to have to convince 2/3 of the townspeople to accept this plan. So it's going to have to be something that the town buys in, and and I thought you guys did an excellent job before on the activities that took place down at the senior center involving the community and the way that was set up. So the more we continue to do that, just in my own of looking of is there some business, is there a way we can help the taxpayers? We have this tremendous opportunity in a couple ways. Are there ways that we can either get a corporation or business interest that can go up there? We're running against the fact that we're kind of in the middle of nowhere, in the sense we have 109 and 27, but we don't have the 495s, we don't have the 128s, the 95s, so it's very hard for us to compete with that. But are there ways that we can maybe entice, as Mike just said, 94% of all our tax base is residential. The more we can clean business, I keep using the electric time as a good example. The other thing is the whole idea of housing, senior housing. We lose people every day out of this town, good citizens that are going to Norfolk and Franklin and other towns, because we really don't have that option. And can we look at the type of design, the architecture and design that would be special and unique to Medfield that would be in there? And I would think also to be very energy efficient. that will go in there. Affordable housing, senior housing, again, that's just my own opinion on that. But I think to answer your question, if we can come in with this master plan, I would like, hopefully, see it address some of those issues. And also the zoning, and also involve the public along the way, so that when we have to come to town meeting, it's going to be easier to get that two-thirds vote. They're going to see and have the confidence, certainly like they had before.
Sarah Raposa, Town Planner. You mentioned several of the items that are actually in the draft RFP for the master planning process. It's envisioned to be a soup to nuts guidance for the committee and the town. So the components are so it would be the plan itself. So taking a lot of the goals and objectives and the values of the community, and then bringing in with the analysis, affordable housing, more housing choices, the open space connections, making sure that the feeling of the state hospital is part of the community as a whole. Then we move into the regulatory structure, zoning, design, and permitting process. Make sure we understand what we're looking for. And then the third component would be some sort of development RFP. So it's hard to say right now where we'll end up with it, but I think based on the visioning that we did, we have a sense of where we'll ultimately end up. And of course, that's going to depend on a lot of market conditions analysis that comes out of the process. So from my perspective, I'm looking for a lot in a short amount of time from a firm.
Yeah. Good. Excellent.
Is there any, through federal or state, other revenue sources that possibly we can look at to help in
Supplement
any way?
what we've allocated. I inquired with the Department of Housing and Community Development. They do grants for communities that are seeking to implement programs like 40R, which is the smart growth zoning. Things that we talked about, creating that mixed use destination, having some small businesses with housing options. They are more willing to give grants to communities that haven't set aside funds for smart growth. So might be a challenge, particularly because we're getting ready so soon. So we'll keep our eyes out, but.
Gil Rogers. A couple things. Beth Murphy is coming on the 9th to meet with the committee, but she would like very much for you to attend that too. Because she's had a great deal of experience, not only in the planning process, in putting together a master plan, which she's done for Northampton, but also has had a lot of experience in funding and sources of funds. And the other person that's coming on the 23rd, Steve, is Sharon Gasson, who's the who's the planner from Foxborough. And the other person's coming is Weichert, Rick Weichert, who was the person that put the plan together for Foxborough. Very knowledgeable of the process. So in both cases, if we're trying to get an insight into the process that you go through, which is, I think, one of the things that the committee has to develop. What are the steps? How do you involve the public? How do you actually put together a plan that balances the needs and interests of multiple stakeholders? And they've been through that, so they can speak from the perspective of actual experience. So it's useful, I think, in both cases for those people to be it. And Sharon's an expert in fundraising. So if there's somebody that's good about identifying state, federal sources of funds, they would be useful. Beth had mentioned to us, this is Beth from Northampton, that Mass Development might be able to help fund the development of the plan. So when we meet with her on the 9th, that'll be an interesting point to bring out. How could Mass Development actually help us in the funding and other sources of funds too? Good. So I think both are good resources to look at. The other thing, while I have the microphone, I might mention too, is that we're continuing on with the work with Wentworth Institute of Technology. They're very psyched about continuing the design work. And in fact, Charlie Semino is going to be out here on Friday to meet with whoever would like to meet with us. But at least I know that, Richard, you're available, and I know, I think you're going to be available, and Ralph is going to be. So 3 or 4. I don't think it takes a lot of people. But they're looking for ideas, you know. And one of the things that I think that was very interesting in the work they did before was the idea of using some of the properties, such as the Lee Building, for things like a cultural center or performing arts center or something like that to really emphasize the cultural values that this community has. So that's one idea. But they're looking for housing, different types of ideas for housing and senior housing, affordable housing, but creative ideas. So that's going to go on this semester at Wentworth, and then probably in the next semester too. Excellent. So we've got that going on.
I think the kind of the elephant in the room is, what is the story of the buildings? You know, are they able to be saved? Are they not able to be saved? I think that is key. You know, they all have to come down. Can some be saved? What are the condition of the buildings? Someone's going to have to try to answer.
So, Christine, I think you had some news about getting access to the building. So we the prior iteration, the committee, the advisory committee had tried to do the RFP, or had done an RFP, and selected a consultant to do a survey of 4 or 5 buildings. But they were having a lot of difficulty getting into the buildings, but maybe that's...
Their difficulty was only based on license and insurance, because they're going to have an increased amount of insurance to go into the buildings, obviously. So we're actually finalizing the license. I was on the phone with DCAM most of today working on that. They should be in there by the end of September.
That's great.
So we're thinking that will be useful information in helping to answer that question, which I think you're right. That's a big one. Does anybody else from the committee have anything else they want to add or ask about?
I think the only other thing, Steve, I would add is that we still have ongoing conversations and meetings scheduled with DCAM itself with regard to executing a purchase and sale agreement and ultimately, closing on it and timing that appropriately for town approval and being able to have, actionable agreement with them.
I think there is another, you might call it financing resource, and that depends on this issue of reusing the building, which is historic tax credits. And the developer would, if they do continue to use the buildings, can get historic tax credits under certain circumstances to help finance the project. That was an issue that somebody brought up.
At the last meeting, one of the discussions was around adjacent property that the town either controls or owns. And the question would be, should we include this in the RFP? In other words, should we expand the RFP for the consultant to look not only at the Medfield State Hospital property that's being acquired, but also at the 10-acre piece on Ice House Road that directly abuts the site, and also abutting is the 18 acres, which is known as the Hinckley property. Whether or not, in terms of study or planning, whether or not we should look at the whole piece to, get a better idea or get the ideas, period, on what could be done there. And anyway, I think that's a decision that, would be the selectmen's.
I think that's key, and I know Pat is also chair of the Economic Development Committee, and in addition to when they are looking at it's not the RFP, but it's the REI, of what information comes in, that would be, I think, a nice thing to share, and you guys can get on the committee what's out there, what other interests, are. But I would like to, I think that's a key point. Rather than being in a bubble, you're looking of what happens at Hinckley, what happens at Lot 3, right, and other spots in town as well.
I too would include all the contiguous town land in what you plan for, and I would include, I would actually include McCarthy Park. I mean, we might want to move the softball fields. We might want to make some changes. So I would include those as well. And I think Hinckley, by the way, is closer to 10 or 12 acres than 18, but I would certainly include all of the contiguous town land down through the Hinckley land.
John Thompson, one charge that I think the committee could make good headway in is forging a relationship with DCR, with the Department of Conservation and Recreation. In a couple of weeks, we're going to have a meeting on the progress of the cleanup down at the river, and I think we'll invite a contact for this area for DCR to come to that meeting. But I think going forward, it'll be important for the town to have a close relationship and contact with a DCR representative, since the adjacent lots are managed by the Department of Conservation and Recreation, and there certainly is going to be an awful lot of recreational use up there in the future. So I hope that the committee will also pick up on that and continue a relationship with them.
That's a good idea.
Mark, did you have a sense as to whether or not we should be including all of these contiguous town parcels in our plan?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense, because that really kind of covers that side of town and stuff, and kind of takes care of that. And then it'd be always good to get a little more feedback and information on the town-owned parcels. And I think every little bit of information helps, so I think that's good.
Yeah. Pat Casey, while we're at it, we should, if not explicitly in the RFP, we should also be mindful of whether we have any indirect effects on the downtown in the process of developing. At minimum, we want to avoid unintended consequences of kind of having not enough critical mass in either place and somehow diminishing both.
I just was reminded by John's comment about an article that Alex Stevens sent to me. I think he was sort of named as one of our resource members, and he's been very interested in agricultural things, but he sent an article about a farm-to-table endeavor in Ithaca, New York, I guess it was, which I thought was really intriguing, because although we don't have great infrastructure, we do have some great agricultural land in the vicinity. The idea of tying that together with a restaurant that deals with farm-to-table and maybe has some instruction elements too would be great. Whether that's possible, I don't know, but at least it gets a little commercial and ties into the agricultural history of the land.
Point.
Seemed like kind of a neat idea, but whether it goes anywhere, I don't know. But
Actually, that's one of the things the Wentworth kids dealt with as well, that same concept of using...
Culinary school,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which was really very nice. Great concept, yeah.
I sit here and I listen to various points being brought up, and I'm wondering about the timing and the priorities that you see being relevant here. I mean, we have still yet to resolve the purchase and sale agreement with DCAM. We have a meeting this Thursday night, as you know, but we can get ahead of ourselves a bit on this, I think. I mean, there was a mention now of going out with an RFP for the development plan, and that looks to me to be acting in haste. We have all these other things to consider. You know, we're looking at the building conditions, which have yet to be clarified for us. Maybe we'll get this work done, as Christine just said, very soon, but that's for 4 buildings. It's not for the campus. We are looking at the question of what's this going to help us with as far as the 40B goes, but we really haven't got a specification as to just what our exposure there is, given the West Street project and given some of the other points that have been raised about the West Boylston question of proportion of land, et cetera, which is mandating 40B numbers. We haven't looked at something which has always been with us for years and years, was the Mass Historic question. And what are we going to do with Mass Historic? How are we going to resolve that? And what about our local historical commission's concerns? So these are not overnight problems to be solved in the very, very near term. It seems to me that we should hold off spending any of that, what, $100,000 that we spent on an RFP until we get some fact basis on a number of these key points, and certainly until we get the PNS and then the closing. We don't, I understand that there's a good possibility we can close this out before the end of the year, but that may or may not be true. We have seen nothing work to schedule so far in the 20 years I've been looking at this problem. So I don't have much hope that we're going to close this out to the degree that we would be comfortable going out with an RFP that would have a fact basis behind it that we would be comfortable with. And there's another point that John Thompson raised here about the contents of the buildings. We don't have any inventory of those and any assessment of those. John thought or thinks that there is real value in some of the materials in the building, and at least the understanding to date is that DCAM doesn't have any interest in them. So what John thinks might be there could be of significant value to the community. Now, I'm not expecting to find $1 million there, but we may find something that is well worth historically for us and perhaps monetarily. So for all of those reasons, I would take a make haste slowly approach to this. I would not run out and get an RFP together and send it out anytime soon. Let's nail down the PNS and let's nail down some of these questions that we want answered.
One thing I believe, Chris, we now have is it Lozano or Lugano report on the condition of the buildings. Now, granted, it is 10 years old, but at least it gives you some measurement of each of the buildings, what they consist of. But the other thing I wanted to caution you, it sounds like you guys have been given a 10-year assignment here tonight. So I think you need to not let yourself spread too thin, concentrate, focus on the issues. Otherwise, you'll never get anywhere. I think you've got to, I remember the discussion at town meeting was this is going to become a very costly proposition for the town to maintain the property going forward, and that we need to generate some revenues to cover the costs we're incurring. So I think you need to be careful about expanding the scope of your task too far, because you may never accomplish anything if you start trying to deal with all of the issues we talked about tonight. I think you have to come up with some focus, and granted, not everyone will agree with the focus that you've chosen, but you've been chosen to select that focus, and I think it's up to you people to represent the community. And if you're going to get it done in less than 10 years, you're going to have to narrow the scope of what you're looking at, I think.
And I think the good news is that the town has provided a substantial amount of money for the committee to hire planners to work for them, basically, and do the,
Well, they did, I
do the
think,
work.
yes, and they've provided, I believe, around $800,000 already in cleanup costs. So the town has invested a substantial. We're investing $3.1 million to buy the land. So
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think, and I think the town is willing to provide whatever funds the committee feels it needs. I just caution about trying to be all things to all people, and and then you never get anywhere. So.
Well, I think, too, we were all very concerned about that. We don't want to bury you folks and wipe you out with it, because this is such an overwhelming process, and that's why it's really important to, like I said, one step at a time, and maybe starting first with the master planning committee and spend the money to have people do most of the work so you can just kind of advise. We don't want to see you folks all spending more time than you've already committed to it, because we know that's asking way too much for you to do that. More to advise, but not to get, what I mean, to hire. Don't be afraid to hire the people you need, the experts to do that. I mean, I think that's our philosophy there, because we're very concerned about your own, personal well-being and stuff, and mental health, trying to deal with this. It's really important to us. You don't that, really.
Yes, Mr. Massaro.
I just have a question, and I'm not sure whether it's for the newly constituted committee or whether it's for the selectmen, but I hear master plans and everything else, and I get a little bit confused. It would seem to me that somewhere in all of this, the town needs its own master housing plan first. Before you start deciding what's the best use for a piece of property, you ought to determine what your requirements are. And I understand, is that what this consultant is going to be also looking at, or is the town's master plan a separate issue?
I understood that it was a separate issue. I think it would be good if we had a townwide master plan first, and then we could do the planning for this particular piece of property, but we don't have a townwide master plan at this point. So I think that Sarah has indicated that she'd like to do this process for the hospital and then do the townwide master plan after this gets
Well, I don't want to
accomplished.
chicken and egg something here, but it seems to me that you're putting the hospital property as the savior, catch-all, be-all of whatever you decide you're going to need, and let's see what goes up at the hospital, and then whatever's left over goes in the master plan for housing for the town. Well, I guess, this isn't a criticism. I mean, it's just an observation.
No, I don't.
You know, it seems to me that the master plan should say, this is what the town needs, and then you give it to your planner, your developer, or whoever you're going to get to find the uses for the hospital property, to see how the hospital property fits into the needs, as opposed to how do the needs fit into the hospital property. I guess that's all I'm trying to say.
And I, personally, that's one of the first things I'm going to be very interested in hearing from the planner who gets hired, is how you integrate those things.
And there's 3 components here. So, yes, I think it would be great if we had a townwide master plan. It's a vision for the town, the whole town, for the future. But we are presented with this issue now that, you know, I don't know if it needs to have the same kind of time schedule that it has had. And so if we can get started on identifying what the town wants for this property as a strategic plan,
Yes.
okay? And then the third component is a housing production plan. It's a 2-part document. It talks about housing needs assessment, and which is basically data-driven, and then an action plan on how we're going to close our gap for our 10%, how we're going to provide more units on the subsidized housing inventory. So we have bits of that that can provide the data. So I don't see it, I see them merged, even if it doesn't kind of feel like that.
Can I just ask, Christine, just on a goal as far as the purchase and sale, because that naturally has to come first. I would imagine with the change of administration and stuff, there's at least some pressure on both sides to try to have the purchase and sale completed by the end of the year?
Both sides would like to close by the end of the year. Yeah, and just to go back to the housing production plan, Sarah and I have been trying to work. We actually have a draft housing production plan. It's currently on my desk. We're trying to finalize it, and then it'll be presented to both the planning board and the Board of Selectmen. So that is in the process, and hopefully we can get that finalized and submitted before the master plan for the state hospital starts.
Good. Go ahead.
Well, I could make a comment regarding the housing. It seems to me that in the redevelopment or the development at Medfield State Hospital, certainly housing is going to be a big part of that. If for no other reason, that's going to be the great revenue generator. You know, and I think that probably more so than any other use that could come out of it. And I think that in the final analysis in terms of planning, it's really to lean into the needs. You know, what are the needs for housing in the town? And Mr. Zorger brought up the issue about, well, there's a lot of people that leave town, you know, that are empty nesters that in the baby boomer generation because they want to downsize. This is a great opportunity to create something in town where they can stay at price points that are affordable. You know, and a lot of ways of doing that. You can, you know, create it by creating the density, a higher density than you would normally have, but you could control the density because you sort of own the property, you know, and so if you own the property and you can create the kind of density that you would need in order to reach price points that are affordable for the baby boomer market. And, you know, in addition to that, as Sarah brought up, the 40B, I think there's plenty of opportunities there to create, if the buildings are saved, you know, create 40B housing in the existing structures and to convert those. And if you convert those, there'll probably be a developer there. They'll take advantage of those tax credits in order to retain those, the structures of those buildings, or enough of them, so that they can get those credits. So I think housing is a huge segment of this that, and as I said, is mainly because it is the revenue generator that'll bring in, and it'll attract people there. I mean, you create a place for a point of destination where people go to because that's where they live, and then add additional uses, in the master plan. Anyway, just to comment on that.
Ralph, when you're talking about revenue generator, are you talking about revenue for the town in terms of
Yes,
property taxes? That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, thanks for making that clear.
And I have a draft of the RFP that I will distribute tonight, so
good.
you can,
Excellent.
everybody can take a look at it.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
I think the other thing that, which I think the selectmen have to address, and we have to get with Chief Kingsbury and Chief Meany, is once we're in control of the land, how the security and the upkeep of that, and what's going to happen with that. I think that also
You mean
is kind of out there.
long-term or short-term?
Yeah, both.
Short-term.
Long-term.
What's
I
the
mean, all
security
the-
needs
And
and
long-term, once it's
All
built
those
on,
things
it'll-
fall into place as you decide what the uses are going to be. I mean,
Sure.
they can, now, we've talked as far as the planning for the public safety building as to whether they feel they will need substations up there, and neither chief feels the need for that.
Yeah.
They feel that the central location of the existing stations is adequate. Will they need more patrols up there? I suppose, depending on what you put up there, possibly yes. But, I think a lot of it is dependent on what you're coming up with as a use, and those other things will fall into place.
Mhm.
I'd like to say something about the master plan. I think the perception is we don't have a master plan. My feeling is we have lots of pieces of the master plan, because the master plan is not a document that you drop on a desk and, say we have a master plan. I think we have one of those. It was done in 1964. To me, the master plan is a living document, and we have many sections of it already done or in process. The schools have a master plan for their future school development and school needs. The Water and Sewer Board is working on a master plan for their facilities. The Open Space and Recreation Committee has a master plan. We are trying to work up a housing production plan. They all need somehow to be tied together, but it's always going to be changing, because by the time you finish all the components of it, you're going to be starting all over again.
Right.
So I think the idea that we don't have a master plan is not quite accurate. We have lots of pieces of the master plan. Maybe it needs a little tying together, but I don't think we're dealing with a vacuum here with all the things we've done in the past couple of decades. I think our Permanent Planning and Building Committee has laid out a master plan for development of public facilities, public buildings in town. So I think we're already doing a lot of that. I get a little concerned when I hear that we don't have a master plan. I think we do have a master plan. We have a lot of parts of it, but it's an ongoing document. It's not a book that you drop here somewhere.
Well, I think the other thing, too, is that we're always talking about all these different components constantly, and everyone's very much aware of what's going on and what the different committees are doing, more or less, for the major portions. So it's a living thing that we're all verbalizing all the time as far as talking about different components, as far as we tie things together. And like I said, it may not be pretty, and we don't have this big, huge tome that we can just, stick on the shelf and then that's it, and say, well, we did it, and then we're done. I mean, we're working through it all the time, I think.
And I think ideally, any planning you do would be evergreen, that it would be constantly being refreshed and updated so that it's
Absolutely,
so that it's
yeah.
current. It's not just a document on a shelf that's gathering dust.
I think John Harney actually raised an interesting point that, and I know, Steve, you're looking for charges. Maybe a charge is, he raises a number of issues. Maybe we need to, one of the charges is brainstorm, what are those other issues that are out there that we're going to have to deal with and address, such as Mass Historical, such as the 40B issues and other, what issues out there, so we're not putting the cart before the horse type thing.
And the Medfield Historical could be even more
And
of a
Medfield
problem than the
Historic
Mass
District.
Historical.
Yep.
Excellent. Good. Thanks very much.
And I'm just going to leave you, Steve, this was online. It's actually a Medfield property owner that has done tremendous fundraising and is into all kinds of large-scale development and stuff. I'll just leave that with you.
Yep.
Yeah, I think my last thing is, maybe this is kind of my town historian hat, in all of Medfield's history, I think this is one of the most important decisions we're going to make of what takes place. It's going to have a huge impact on the town. And each of you are in a unique part of our town's history. And generations from now, they're going to look back, just like we looked at when the land was purchased up in Noon Hill and others. This is a major decision, and all of you are playing just a key role. So I think all of us just appreciate your work very much, but generations from now are going to look back on the work that you guys do. So thank you.
Indeed, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for coming in. Our next item is to award a contract for the replacement of the water tower at the former state hospital site.
Yes, there's information in your folder. The engineers and the Water Sewer and Board are recommending the low bidder. All three firms are very reputable, and the low bidder they vetted and they feel that it's a good bid, and they recommend that you award the bid.
And that came in around just a little bit over $3 million.
$3,064,022, I believe.
And then there was something about engineering costs on top of that or something, or is that?
There is another contract the town council is now reviewing for, it's actually an amendment to the initial contract, design contract for environmental partners to carry it forward through the construction phase. And then you will have, he's also started to review the contract for this award and put that together. So we'll probably have that ready for your signature at your next meeting, hopefully.
Like the figure that Georgia was using tonight for the bond financing was a little over $5 million for the water tower. So that must include it's almost like $1 million for the water main stuff, I think, isn't it?
The total amount for the appropriated for the water tower and water mains was $6 million. There was $160,000 that was voted from unexpended funds of the Green Street, North Street water main project. And so the balance is what we're borrowing. It's $5,840,000. The cost of the water main project, I believe, was around 1.7 million. The water tower contract tonight is $2,064,000.
$3 million.
$3,064,000. Yeah. So they feel they're in pretty good shape.
Good.
The only real unknown at this point is the cost of removing the hazardous material around the old water tower.
Which is mainly lead paint, I gather, from sandblasting off the old water tower.
Well, yeah, when they used to paint it with lead-based paint.
Yeah.
So, but the cost of that contract also includes the cost of demolition and removal of the old tower.
Yep.
So they feel pretty comfortable with that the $6 million will fund both the water main and the water tower.
So my hope was that we were going to make so much money out of the salvage of the old water tower metal that it was going to pay for the demolition of it. But that's probably a pipe dream, huh?
Yes.
I was afraid of that. Yeah.
It's probably 6 of one, half dozen another. If we took the tower and if we in the bid had claimed the material for scrap,
Yeah.
then the responsibility for moving the lead paint would have been ours, and probably would have cost us more than we made in the scrap value. So
Yeah. The line item for the demolition disposal of the storage tank is just $60,000, which is nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So so that's That's pretty good. Yeah, so this is that's the award right there for the 3 million, whatever it is, 3 million. You can read that, Richard.
And they are making good progress on the water main. They had hoped to start the crossing under the railroad tracks either this week or next week.
They're down to the railroad track now.
Yeah, we're still trying to work out some issues with CSX Railroad on insurance and flagging guards and whatnot. So hopefully we'll get those squared away and be able to go under.
Good.
And they've been working with the contractor doing the cleanup on the state hospital site, coordinating that so that they will not be in each other's way, and they seem to have that worked out pretty well.
The contractor doing the water main seems like a good one, just from seeing them working. They seem
He
very
is,
active,
yeah,
very busy.
Yeah, I'd say we're very happy with him. His small outfit, I think he only has 10 employees.
Oh, they're all there every day then.
Yes, yeah, but he's been cranking right along and has been very cooperative when we've asked him to do things, so it was a good, a lucky bid for us, so.
Temporary water mains are going up Long Meadow. They were up today.
They were up today, they were really cranking along, yeah. And they're anxious to get on the state hospital site, but we have to get the land disposition agreement and the land transferred before they can get on that, so.
And that's likely to happen in the next couple of weeks.
Tonight.
Tonight. And then we'll close in the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Do you want a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
I make a motion that we award the contract to the Phoenix Company as recommended by the Water and Sewer Board for $3,064,933.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Is there a signature required there? I think,
Award of contract owner. I'll sign
Yep.
it if you want. Want me to
yeah,
sign?
you should sign this, Chairman, yeah.
Discuss September 16 agenda, appointments, items to be included.
Yeah, the last meeting you said you wanted to have an item on the agenda to discuss what you want to discuss at your next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Together a temporary agenda.
Yeah, just I think it's a good idea for every meeting going forward if we just figure out what we're doing next, so.
You do, on the calendar, you do have the Permanent Building and Planning Committee coming
Yeah.
in to update you on the, primarily on the public safety.
Public
The town
safety
garage is
and the
pretty well
town
winding
garage,
down,
yep.
so.
Yeah. And will they be ready, you think? Yeah, they'll be thinking in
Yeah,
good shape to give us
they
some-
were, I emailed them today, and I've already heard from one, but they discussed it at the meeting, and they were expecting to come in on the 16th.
Excellent. Good. That'll be very
The only
exciting.
thing we had asked, and I don't know when they're coming, but we had asked the cemetery commission to come back. I don't know. This is
Yeah.
probably too soon for next week, but that's not on that. At some point.
I had them down on the 23rd, actually.
23rd?
But then again, we were going to have the Water and Sewer Board then, but then we had said that we would go to the Water and Sewer Board. Mike had suggested that we'd go to the Water and Sewer Board instead of their coming to
23rd,
us.
he also has written an energy committee there also. This is on this sheet that
How
he
do you
gave me.
keep having different ones than me? I don't have the
One that
Energy
was on the
Committee.
table right here tonight. Yeah.
Well, do you want to have the cemetery commission come in the same night? I would think.
Sure. That's fine.
On the 16th?
Because I
On the
think Ken's
23rd?
already been in discussing highway construction,
Yeah.
so we don't need to do that again, so.
Yep. On the 23rd? Yeah.
Yep.
And what about, you had energy committee in there on the 23rd, too?
Yeah, I think you can do those two. I don't think they're, long. I mean, you did two tonight, and it wasn't not that bad.
Good.
So when you have
Okay.
10 on one night, it gets to be a little tough. So.
Yes.
And then you'll let us know when we should be going to the Water and Sewer Board meeting.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And then on the 7th, Personnel Board and Assistant Town Administrator review personnel bylaw update progress.
Excellent. And then we'll be signing some bonds, yes, with Georgia on October 7th. That's great. Excellent.
Okay. Licenses and permits. Council on Aging requests a one-day wine and malt beverage permit for the following events. Supper Club to be held Wednesday, September 17, 4 to 7 p.m. Supper Club and Antique Roadshow, ooh, cool, event to be held on Wednesday, October 15, 4 to 8:30 p.m. And the third one's a Halloween dance on Saturday, October 25, 7 to 10 p.m.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep. Medfield Lions Clubs requests permissions to post signs promoting the annual Chowder Fest to be held Saturday, November 8. Also seeking permission to use the town VMS sign at the transfer station to display the information.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
What's VMS? That's the digital sign?
The electronic sign.
What does it stand for?
I don't know what VMS stands for.
Thank you.
Good, though.
Vehicle motor sign, I don't know.
Vehicle moving sign?
Variable.
Yeah.
Jean Minio, Medfield Cultural District requests permission to place 2 pianos, one in the Straw Hat Park and the second at the gazebo from September 19 to October 5.
I think it's so creative.
This is cool.
I think that's excellent, actually. I certainly make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
It sounds like she has people that are going to help move her there and people that are going to cover it because of the weather and things like that, so.
Are both pianos being donated?
Both pianos are being donated. Jean is going to start fundraising to hire a company to have the pianos moved there and then moved off the site. But she'll be looking for volunteers to uncover them and cover them, so let her know if you want to volunteer.
They need to be kept out of the weather, I guess.
You mean you could be the piano man?
You could be the piano.
Yeah, there you go. So we've got a Medfield State Hospital update, status update next. Do we need to do anything there?
I think the most important thing is I have the water tower LDA,
Excellent.
which is also the purchase and sale, ready to be signed.
Thank you
So
for working
that is
that through, Chris.
Most important right now, we are scheduled to close on September 18th. And in talking with both attorneys today, it looks like it's just going to be a mail closing.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
There doesn't need to be anybody present. It should be fairly straightforward. So that's it. We can sign that tonight. So you need actually to vote to sign it and authorize the chairman to sign as well. There are some places where you need to sign as a board and some places you need to sign as the chairman.
Okay.
I want to thank, because I know there was a lot of concern before of what issues were out there, so thank you for working that through with DCAM on that.
Oh, no problem. I think Bill and Peg did a great job finalizing and putting the last tweaking on the wording for them, so.
Excellent. Good.
Thank you.
Can you make a
Do we have,
motion? Yeah.
you want to make a motion?
I move that we, what's the exact wording?
It's the land disposition agreement for the water tower in Wellfield.
Disposition agreement on the water tower and Wellfields?
In Wellfield.
And Wellfields.
Yep, I will second that.
You're moving that we sign it?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Very good.
So that's a
Excellent.
total of about 26 acres, correct, that the
Nice.
town will be
Correct, with the Wellfield,
getting
yes.
from the state?
Proud owner.
So,
Yeah.
So now the
So
hospital.
don't leave without signing this tonight.
So now the hospital parcel is smaller, so we can ask DCAM to charge us less for it. Selectmen's reports. Mr. Sorga?
Sure, just a couple of things. Mike, anything more on the farm in Harding Street Railroad letter there?
no, I'll try to get that moving. I've been
Okay.
trying to get the specs out for the water tower.
Absolutely,
State House,
absolutely.
But I'll try to get moving on that.
Can you mention to Ken, in my walks there, the Wild Holly Lane sign is missing? If we could,
It is college time.
yeah.
I was just gonna say, I know why that's missing.
Yes, okay.
I actually spoke to the chief about that before, and he said, actually thought it would be creating more of an issue if he made an issue out of it than just replacing the signs.
Mhm.
Yeah, hopefully people wouldn't do that, but unfortunately, it appears that
Or
does
at least when
happen.
they graduate from college, if they'd
Bring
be
'em
nice
back.
enough to return them.
They just have a four-year loaner. Yeah.
No questions asked. It's like when your library fines are overdue.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
bring them back, no
The
questions asked.
library was looking
Outside.
for creative new things that they could loan, so maybe that's one of them.
Speaking of Wild Holly Road, the chief did speak to me about the possibility of putting an additional street light at the intersection of 27. Well, it's not an intersection, I guess, technically, but apparently he felt that there is a need for one there, and he would like to to recommend it,
Now,
so
where's this going to be?
it's Wild Holly and 27.
Really?
Talking
Yeah.
about
A street
traffic light?
I mean,
Should
a
have
traffic
seen-
light?
No,
Street light.
Oh, a street light.
Street
Okay.
light, yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
none
They're
of
on the
traffic.
opposite side, but apparently that's the only
Oh.
sort of intersection that doesn't have a light
Oh,
on
okay.
that stretch. and
All right.
So,
What's
They
that,
want to do that.
what's the, we don't need to go to town meeting on that, do we?
no, it comes out of the street lighting budget. If you vote to install one, we'll put a request into NSTAR.
And that was the chief's recommendation?
Yes, yeah.
I move that we add an additional street light at the intersection of Wild Holly Lane and Route 27 High Street.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Yep.
The other thing, we talked about last time, a number of goals we hadn't met last year. Do we follow up on that in any way? Do we take a look at the goals that we didn't achieve last year and see if we add that on, or we just forget about them? What do we do on that?
I think it would make sense to follow up, certainly.
So can we somehow, maybe, I have the list, so maybe at the next meeting, I can just circulate that,
Yeah.
of which goals that we didn't fully meet, and then maybe we can take a look at our calendar and see how we can address them.
Sure.
Sure.
Good idea.
And you raised an issue which Pete, last time on that, I'm calling it the Sudbury Plan concerning assistance to seniors that live in their own house. Can we follow up? And I don't know where that is with Sudbury or who it is in Sudbury, whether it be our Council of Aging or our assessors or someone out of Town Hall or something to either have someone from Sudbury come over here or get some information. I don't have a lot of that. I know I've read a lot online on that, but I would like to see what Sudbury's doing, what are the advantages, the disadvantages of that. Maybe Mike can help me with that. What's the best way to go about just figuring out what they're doing over there?
I'll talk to Stan and the assessors. Probably they'd be the best ones to contact the assessors in Sudbury and find out if they've been able to implement a program. Last I heard, there was a lot of controversy over it, whether it was going to be for any senior or just seniors.
Right. What have they done with
certain
that?
income levels, and that's what I'm not sure, but I'll ask the assessors to see what they can find out.
Okay. And then, just to follow up, anything more on our Tree City Arbor Day plans with,
I'm still
Brothers
waiting to hear
Market?
back from Brothers Market. They needed a little more time.
okay, that's fine. And Evelyn, on the sharing committee, I think Westwood meets also tonight? So, once we'll have everyone, correct?
Yes.
And then can we just, I know you had several, I think 3 different dates. If we can,
It's the September 24th, which is a Wednesday night, or the 25th.
wasn't there a
That's when-
17th also?
Yes, but another committee has one of the rooms.
I'm sorry?
Another committee, a town committee is using a
Has
room.
this room?
Yeah,
Um,
so,
We could maybe find a different room if that would be the only time they could meet, because I think the Sherburne representative is going away the end of the month. That was the only, you could probably make the 17th. I don't know about the others.
okay.
If we could find out on that, that would be great.
I'll put all 3 dates out there
Okay,
to each of the towns and
Okay.
see what response we get.
great, thank you.
Mhm.
And I attended a meeting in Boston, actually. Mike had emailed me. It was a grant meeting that was hosted by the Metropolitan Area Planning Council and the Executive Office of Administration and Finance, and was called Community Innovation Challenge Grant. And the Executive Office of Administration and Finance announced that they have $3 million available to support local government innovations through regional collaboration, which I thought the sharing committee had some ideas. That's why I wanted, important to see if we get them to meet in September. It may be unrealistic. The due date for this is October 10th. And what they're looking for is new and innovative programs that is not currently funded. They would supply like the seed money that would cover everything. It could be capital costs, it could be a consultant or an employee. And they would fund it for 1 year and then look for sustainability that it was going to continue. So it was an interesting meeting. There was probably about 65 either planners or selectmen or others from different towns throughout the state that was in there. The other thing, we had a conference with Representative Kennedy's office with Chief Meany, Mike, and myself concerning the CSX railroad crossing that continues to break. And the last time, it was gridlock throughout the center. It's bad enough as it is, but if you have to shut those gates down up to 2 hours, sometimes it takes CSX to get out here. The poor chief is trying to reroute traffic down residential neighborhoods and everything else, and
The gates are just malfunctioning?
well, the issue, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the issue is there's a wire connector that goes across when the tracks cross 109. And because of Truska trucks and the traffic and the heat, those things actually keep moving up and down, and eventually they keep breaking the wire. Now, the chief has suggested if they could move that whole apparatus to either side of 109, then you're not getting the trucks and the movement up and down. The other issue he has is, once those gates go down, they're also tied into the 3 sets of traffic lights.
Yeah.
And it shuts everything down, was it north-south?
North-south can move through,
Can
it's
move,
east-west.
east-west cannot.
yeah,
So
that's it,
now-
all done.
And he can't, and until they fix that, it's gridlocked through the entire center. There is a key that some towns have that he wants to see if Medfield could get, that you could disengage that.
Yep.
They don't want, and then what happens is the gates come up, but the lights at the railroad keep blinking, but
They could wave people through.
they
with
can,
an-
right,
with
but
an officer.
CSX
Yeah.
is hesitant to do that, because if there was an accident or something, insurance, some car then went through when the gates were up. So, but if you had an officer there, you could then direct the traffic. Kennedy's office was gonna get back to us, and they kind of passed the buck a little bit to tell us to go to the Department of Transportation. I forwarded you the name of the guy on,
Oh, you did? When did you send that?
a couple of days ago.
Okay.
Well, because they did call late
Okay.
that day.
let
So
me
we do
check.
have a name with Department of Transportation to look at, so we're gonna keep on that. I mean, it's ridiculous. CSX said they can fix it, but it's very expensive. Yet, it costs them a lot, anywhere between 40 minutes and 2 hours it takes that crew to get out there to fix that.
And they refuse to pay the overtime for the police if the chief has to call in extra people to handle the traffic. He sends them a bill, and they say, we didn't authorize that, we're not paying it. I said, well, what are you gonna do, just let the traffic back up for 2 hours until CSX arrives?
Yeah, maybe we should sue them.
They don't care, because they're in Florida.
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe we should sue them, Mike, ask a judge to give us an injunction against them or something.
Yeah, well, that would take, we'd all be retired by the time that suit was settled. So.
Well, yeah, but give our town council something to do.
So hopefully, I'm not overly optimistic, but hopefully the Department of Transportation.
Well, the other thing we talked about too is the possibility if they're going to go in there. And one of the things they told the chief was that if they put a piece of welded rail in, he said the problem where you got the rail keeps moving.
Yeah.
And if you had a continuous piece of welded rail across that intersection and extending back a ways, that you wouldn't have that problem because the wires wouldn't be dislocated so often. We've also talked in recent years about the condition of that grade crossing. It's a rubberized crossing, which they don't install anymore. They've gone back to it goes around, comes around, they've gone back to the asphalt right up to the track. If they were gonna do something like that, they could do it, you might have to shut down 109 on a weekend, but it would make sense if they were gonna do it, to do them both at the same time.
Yep.
I guess the question is, can we move mountains or not? So,
Okay. The other question I had is, as you know, 70 North Street is under the 18th month demolition delay by the Historical Commission. I'm actually thinking maybe in the next couple of months, if we could bring in someone from the Medfield Historical Commission. My idea and understanding was that in that 18-month period, you don't just wait 18 months, that there's some talk and negotiation and conversation going on to try to persuade the developer to save that house in whatever way. It isn't just a penalty and then you sit and wait 18 months and then it gets torn down. But I'm not quite sure what can be done. At some point, I'd like to see if we can get some of the members of the Historical Commission, see, is there any dialogue going on, what possibly can be done, rather than just sit and wait 18 months, and then it's a kind of a lose-lose for the town. The other thing, I'm happy to report, Columbia Gas finally did the tarring on the section of Adam Street from west to West Mill, and the town of Medfield, they only did their half where the trench was. The town of Medfield, they did the right-hand side of Adam Street. Medfield then went in, and where there was need of patching, town of Medfield patched. And it was my understanding that what was going to happen when we did the stone ceiling, when that was all done, then Ken was going to redo that section with the stone ceiling. But now Ken is telling us that because of weather issues, he wants to wait until probably next June to do all the stone ceiling.
Yeah, that's why I want to check with Ken. I somehow had a recollection that he was talking about putting an overlay down there.
Oh, that'd be great.
Let me check. 'Cause
Okay.
If that's the case, he may still be able to do it. If it is a stone seal, then it probably has to wait a year.
Yeah.
And then,
Next spring, not a year, but till next spring.
and then just to follow up, what's the latest on Route 27 for the paving?
I talked to Bobby Kennedy Jr. this morning when we were down at the construction meeting at the town garage, and the company that's doing 27 is also doing the paving for the town garage, and they were starting down there this morning. He said they probably, it looks like they will be doing the grinding work during the daytime, and he said that probably is easier to do because they can move right along. It doesn't tie it up.
Right.
The problem with the asphalt is when you put it down
Yeah.
in 80-degree weather, you don't want cars driving over it for a while, so you got to detour the traffic. So Ken had talked to them about doing the work at night on the paving portion of it, and he said they were looking at it. When I spoke to Bobby this morning, he said they were still looking at it. So I've got to get together with Ken in the morning and see what we can find out, if we can convince them that it makes sense to do it at night.
I'm just real concerned because I think that's going to tie traffic up, and where they're going to reroute them down South Street, and they're going to come out on this right here with all that 27 traffic. We're really going to have a mess. I really hope they're going to be able to do that in the evening.
I would hope so too.
And then just the other thing, I know Columbia Gas, they did one thing. They're still working. Are they on the sidewalk and by zebras and?
I think Ken's still talking to them
Okay.
about that.
Any update on 40B? I know each time I ask, they keep saying it's going to be in a couple of weeks, and then nothing more happens.
Last I heard was
They
they were
give
due
up,
to,
or-
they were due to start any day. No, I don't think they're giving up by a long shot. I think it's, I don't know whether they're waiting for a final decision from Conservation Commissioner on their financing, but no, it's still going forward.
You're talking about the one on West Street?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Gatehouse.
Yep.
And any update on our meals tax? Did that in fact go in effect July 1?
It went in effect July 1. The first result would have been, as you know, the turn-ins made the following month, but I don't believe they go until the 20th of the following month, and they send the money out to the cities and towns quarterly. So it won't be till probably the end of October, beginning of November when we get our first.
batch.
And does that sit in a special meal tax fund or something? Where does that go?
No, my understanding goes to the general fund unless the town makes some other provision for it. So.
Okay.
So I think that's something, probably that's an item you need to discuss, because you're probably going to get a lot of requests to use it. You know, you probably could spend it 5 times over.
Sure.
I think you did have a commitment at town meeting that
Yeah,
at
for
least a
downtown.
substantial portion of it would be used to reduce the tax rate.
Yeah.
And I know there was some talk about some of it being used for downtown improvements.
Right.
I'm sure you'll get other requests for using the money. It'll be one of those pools that gets spent 10 times over if you could, but I think you need to make some decisions about how you wish to allocate that money.
Mhm.
And then it will need to go to town meeting, of course,
Yeah.
because it has to be appropriated, so.
And the last thing, and I don't know where to go with this, but speaking of the meals tax, as you look around Medfield, we have an incredible number of restaurants now in town. And we're getting the new Basque restaurant that's going to be opening up shortly over by Papagino's areas. There's possibility of another restaurant perhaps coming in next door. There's a number of things. So people keep talking about Medfield as a destination location. I think we have a location here for eating establishments. And it's almost like, I was trying to think of some kind of a contest or some kind of a catchy saying to just promote the restaurant business in the surrounding towns to, I don't know whether that would be Memo or, or maybe our Economic Development or Downtown Study Committee, maybe working through the schools, coming up with, some kind of a flyer that could go out to the neighboring towns to promote this restaurant business we have here in Medfield. Just thinking off the top of my head, I thought, dine Medfield, experience a different taste each day of the week or something. But to have maybe the high school art kids get involved, or somehow, I don't know where to send that, maybe Downtown Study or Memo, or maybe it's the individual restaurants. And on this flyer, you could list, now we have Brothers with the cafe that's there. Somehow to promote, it's going to be good for business in town. It's going to get people more coming here. That's just good for the tax rates, good for the downtown. Somehow to promote ourselves beyond the borders of Medfield.
I remember about 2 weeks after I was hired, but before I started working in Medfield, they had a headline on the front page of the Globe saying, "Yes, Virginia, there really is a Medfield."
Yeah.
So
I think we've come a long way since then. So it might be good. I talk to a lot of people that, that I know that live in Wellesley and other towns that come to Zebras and others, so we're drawing them here. Any thoughts on that, of how we can, where that would go to promote that?
I had picked up a couple flyers in Dedham the other day that were, and one of them was a list of just the food establishments
Yeah.
in Dedham Square.
Yeah.
And so it was
Where
just
did
a
that-
map.
Where did
and
that go? Was that mailed to you, or was that?
No, it was in Dedham, and I just happened to pick it up. It was just a couple pieces that they were just giving out so that you knew what all the different food establishments in Dedham Square were. One was the food establishments, and the other one was listed all the different stores in Dedham Square, so that the retail people were promoting themselves.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been mulling and thinking on is that I think the retail and the downtown people need like a listserv, just so that they can communicate with each other, to let each other know, gee, do you want to be open on Thursday night next week or during the summer or something like that? And I think just through that communication, these sorts of ideas could maybe get to be more than I don't know how you do it exactly.
Well, are most of the restaurants and the food establishments, most of them on Memo? Members of Memo?
I think a good number of them are, but
good
some
number
of
of
them aren't. So, yeah, so I think you always get that. It's hard. You get businesses, they're all pretty busy just running their own business, so it's
Yeah.
hard for them, I think,
Yeah.
at times to find time to do other stuff, particularly with other businesses at times. So they
it
could-
seems to me a
Unless
lot
there's,
a lot of
unless they're
people
gonna make
get
money out of
restaurants
it,
done by
then-
going online, checking either restaurant reviews, or they have site places where you check. If you look up restaurants, if you want to go to a Japanese restaurant or a seafood restaurant, you go online and you look up seafood restaurants, and they give you a whole list.
But I think there's a lot of people, I've talked to people from Needham who don't even know where Medfield is. So, yeah,
Their fault.
and yet you tend to more travel, I think, out of your town to eat a lot of
Yes, yeah.
times. And
Right.
and we have, from the Needhams, the Wellesleys, the Dover Sherbans, and Newton's and other towns. I think we have just a destination here with the number of restaurants we have in Medfield.
Well, don't we have the Cultural District Committee? Would that be something
maybe
that
that's-
they
maybe
could,
that would be the
could
avenue.
come up with some- Because they were, I know they were talking about branding, which is.
Community branding,
term
yep.
where They were trying to come up with some branding thing that, maybe that would tie in with the restaurant thing too, so.
Yep. I mean, I think if you had some events that tied in with a meal, I mean, people would come for the event maybe and then stay for dinner or stay for lunch.
Like Nathan's Coney Island hot dog contest.
Well, that might bring them, but.
Let me pursue that there. Who's the new president of Memo now?
It is,
It's not still Brandy, right?
no, it is not, no. I'll have to get that for you. You could call Brandy and she'll
Okay.
give you the contact.
Okay. Okay, and that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fisher?
So, 18 days till Medfield Day, so Saturday, September 20th, right? We'll hope for a nice day for weather. So it's been pretty good over the years. We've had some great days for it, so hopefully that'll be the case. So for everyone, just to mark your calendars and set aside that day. Should be another good day. I know it'll be a very busy day. Obviously, a lot of booths and stuff, a lot of rides for the kiddos and stuff. So it should be a good day for the town again. And we went to Ed Hinckley's timer party.
What a nice party.
Nice
That was a
event,
great
yeah.
party. the
Yeah,
DPW
last week,
put
that
on.
was very nice, it was very good. So he's off, Ed's off traveling the country, did he leave, I think he left, right? This week, I think, yeah.
Today, I think.
Is it, yeah, so that's good, yeah.
Just shy of 50 years, wow.
Yes, yeah. That was a nice party. I think he was very touched when they voted to name the well after him. So I think it kind of meant a lot to him, so. And he seemed to like his fishing rod, so I'm sure he'll put it to good use on his travels, so.
Excellent.
I'm told he liked his football jersey as well.
Yes.
Excellent. I'm all set, Pete.
Okay. Anything in the informational that you guys wanted to highlight for people in town?
I just want to remind people that next Tuesday is the primary election for state
That's a good
offices.
point. Yep.
The polling place in Medfield, as usual, will be the center at Medfield, and the polling hours are 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. So it's very important that people from Medfield go out and
vote.
And vote. I think it says something to the state if
Yeah.
people in a community vote heavily, as opposed to the 8% turnout that you sometimes get in the state primaries. So.
Yeah.
And you got the ballots up here, and there are a lot of
Well,
candidates.
there's a lot of candidates on both
Yeah.
sides.
Yes,
Both-
yes.
both
You know,
sides.
they sent us 15,000 ballots. The state.
All right, all right.
Everybody gets to vote several
Nice.
times.
Well, we only have 8,000 registered voters, but
That's all
I
right.
guess we're assuming everybody's going to vote both the Democratic and Republican primaries. I don't know.
Wastewater?
Yes, I think so. You know, talk about saving trees.
Yeah.
I mean, if they sent that to us, how many did they send to the big cities?
Yeah.
It's
I'm not-
every election,
Do they do that? Yeah,
every
definitely.
state
Yeah,
election.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, because they don't know which way the independent could take a Democratic ballot or could take a
Right.
Republican ballot, so they have
They
to
don't
have
know. Yeah.
the numbers if you had 100% of the people voting, okay?
Yeah.
We've got great hours too, I think. You know, not all towns are open as
No.
long as we are, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Most
I mean,
are 7.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
we've got some great, really convenient hours for folks.
It is, and it's surprising how many people take advantage of that. So,
Oh, yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
you know, the
You can get
people
over
that
it
have got to
before.
head into Boston and
Yep, can pop
want to
over.
beat the traffic, so it
Yeah.
works out well, so. Okay, and I think that's about it. Yeah, that's about it for now.
Just got to sign stuff. huh?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very good. We're all done then. Thank you.
Good, thanks.